From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. An extraordinary Colorado athlete gets some much-deserved recognition. Libby James, a runner from Fort Collins, has a slew of accomplishments under her belt. She has run 10 marathons, including Boston, Tokyo, and Pikes Peak. She's the most dominant female runner in the history of the Boulder 10K, having finished in the top 20 for her age group an incredible 28 times. And she did most of those things after she turned 40.
Thought it would be really fun to run the Boston Marathon. And there were no specifications for women over 40. What I did was I wrote to him. His name was Will Cloney, so I wrote to him and I said, "What have you got against old ladies?"
That's a clip from Never Too Old, a short documentary co-directed by Colorado filmmaker Patty Jen Arndt, who's part of Libby's extended family. The film provides a glimpse into a running career that, for Libby, didn't start until she was in her mid-30s, raising 4 children in Fort Collins. She retired from competitive running 5 years ago at the age of 83. The film is screening this Sunday at Colorado State University's ACT Human Rights Film Festival. Patty joined me to talk about directing the film and how Libby's accomplishments grew out of her ability to balance her love of running with her responsibilities as a mom.
So Libby always says that she probably did it because she needed to get out of the house and have a little bit of calmness in her life. She has 4 children, and I imagine it was a relatively raucous household when they were little.
Sure.
And the story is that she would put on her Keds and her jean shorts, and they lived right on the park in Fort Collins, and she would go and she would run around the park, and she would whip up a batch of muffins, throw them in the oven, go outside, run a loop, and get back and serve her kids breakfast before she got them off for school every day.
That's a lot of pressure to make sure that your run time is up to par.
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe that helped increase her times.
Yeah. Don't want to burn those muffins.
No.
What made her want to get into competing at what some might consider a relatively late point in life?
Sure. This story is she had been stopped in the park one day while she was running by somebody in Fort Collins who had said, we're having this race coming up and I see you running in the park every day. You should join. You should sign up. And she was like, no, I'm not really a competitive runner. I just sort of run.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, she joined the race, and I think she won that first race. It just woke her up to like, wow, maybe I'm pretty good at this whole running thing.
Wow. I love this story, too. In 1980, Libby decided to run the Boston Marathon. Now, that's a difficult race to qualify for anyway. For her, it was especially tough because at that time, they did not have a division for women over 40. Could you share the story of how she got in?
Sure. I mean, I'm 50 years old, and I was so surprised to hear that they didn't have a running division for women under 40. They only had, or over 40, at the time. And so when she looked up the qualifying times, there were no qualifying times for women over 40. Oh. So she wrote a letter to the race director at the time, and he was the letter feels very condescending when you read the letter. And he was like, if you can qualify in a sanctioned race with this time, I guess I'll let you in.
Wow.
And then when she does that and she qualifies in a sanctioned other marathon and she hits his qualifying time, he literally writes, well, it's Thanksgiving, so I guess I'll let you in.
Oh, wow. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Exactly. Thank you for the privilege, And at the time, there was a qualifying time for men over 40, just not women over 40.
Wow. And so did they add an over 40 division for women permanently after that?
They did.
One interesting thing that stood out to me in the documentary is that Libby managed to set record times during some of the events that she ran in, but sometimes race officials did not realize it. And I want to listen to a clip of Libby's daughter, Jenny Arndt, the mayor of Fort Collins, who is reflecting on a time when she set a record, but nobody knew it.
She ran a 10-mile race in Denver. I was like, how'd you do? And she told me the time. I was like, Mom, that's got to be a world record. She was like, oh, don't. And I called the race director and I said, I think you just had a world record broken at your race. And I go, you just didn't see it coming in the older age category. So they looked it up, and that was the first one.
I mean, one of the incredible things about Libby was she kept getting faster and faster the older she got for a long time. And it was sort of incredible.
Wow.
From that point on, they started looking up these records and she would just beat them handedly over and over again.
Colorado has a lot of well-known running events from, ultra marathons like the Leadville Trail 100 to the Colfax Marathon to more popular events like the Boulder Boulder. You mentioned that she didn't do a ton of traveling. I wonder if you could tell me about some of the events that Libby James did run here in Colorado.
Sure. I mean, she deserves some kind of plaque for the Boulder Boulder for sure. Every year she would come and she would just win the race for her age group and set the record for her age group. And just as she got older again, she would just do all of those things. She ran Pikes Peak Marathon a number of times. She ran some things in Denver as well.
And she ran a lot of, I guess, closer to home races like the Fort Collins Turkey Trot.
Yes, she did. The story is that the family didn't even know you were supposed to buy a turkey for Thanksgiving because Libby would just wake up on Thanksgiving morning, go and run the turkey trot. And I guess part of the reward for winning the turkey trot is you win a turkey. And that she would just come home with a turkey after the race every year. And they'd be like, when's dinner going to be ready? Like, not even.
I mean, she should get credit for not only winning Thanksgiving dinner, but I guess making it.
Exactly.
So Libby James was inducted into the Colorado Running Hall of Fame at the age of 75. She's racked up a ton of records. But you mentioned that you had a hard time finding documentation about her career. Why do you think that is?
I think it comes back to talking about the records again. People just weren't looking out for an older woman runner. And even her own family, in the film, what you see her sitting next to are these scrapbooks that she created. Mm-hmm. And they're really almost the only records that we had at the time of her career.
Wow.
She even had very few photographs of herself at races. Again, she would wake up in the morning, go off and run a race, and then be home in time to make dinner. And so, and it was the time before people carried, cameras around in their pockets. And so she had some photos from the Boston Marathon that she took because her brother's family lived at the starting point. So she has a few pictures from that. And she has a few photos where some friends came to races with her and other things. But other than that, there's, no video documentation, very little photographic documentation of it all. It's kind of this storied career that I just felt like nobody had heard about. And I really wanted people to understand what she's done for women running. There's always somebody in front. And for me, that was Libby.
Patty Jen Arndt co-directed the documentary Never Too Old about celebrated runner Libby James. The film will screen this Sunday at the Lyric in Fort Collins as part of the ACT Human Rights Film Festival. We'll have more information in our show notes and at KUNC.org. That's it today for In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. Thank you so much for listening.